Hello, welcome to the Lush Tongue vlog. I'm back and I have an epiphany that I would like to share to give a little context. I recently facilitated an all-women's vocal workshop and it was amazing. I co-facilitated with my dear friend Suli, who is an energy worker, a movement worker, and she does Qigong. And she led us in some Qigong sequences, movements. And it was so beautiful. It was amazing. She closed with a sound meditation. And sandwiched in between was circle singing and other kinds of vocal improvisation games and structures. And then, excuse me. Oh, and by the way, I'm vertical because I want to show off my necklace. So, the next day I went to a concert. I went to see Rev Billy and the Church of Stop Shopping, which is a choir that's near and dear to my heart. I sang with them for many years. And then I stepped away from them because from my perspective, I felt like, they're an activist choir, in case you're not familiar with them. And I was starting to feel like I was singing about a lot of doom and gloom all the time. And that was bringing me down. Even though the music was beautiful, but the message for me often landed as, look at this horrible thing happening in the world. Let's focus on this horrible thing happening in the world and sing about it. And because singing amplifies your intention, what was being amplified for me, it was all the horribleness in the world, all the fracking and all the injustice and it was really weighing me down. So I needed to step away. So I went to see them. I was in the audience this time, and it's such a different experience to be in the audience watching a choir that I've been a part of for so many years. The way I experienced it, having stepped away for several years and coming back and hearing how much my listening has shifted, and also hearing how their repertoire has shifted. I'm in this different place where it didn't land for me as doom and gloom. I was able to really receive the hope and the joy and the celebration that was always there, but was much more present to me now with where I am now in my life. And I feel like I'm in a good place to rejoin the choir. So look forward to seeing me sing with Rev Billy and the Church of Stop Shopping in 2020. And out of that awakening came yet another. I was thinking about why do I sing? More specifically, why do I sing with other people? What is it about singing with other people that is so deeply nurturing and nourishing for me? Whether singing improvisationally, like in the workshop that I led, or singing repertoire. What is it, beyond the neuroscience of, our nervous system syncing up and that feels really good, our voices harmonizing, that feels really good. Yes, there's the mechanical, physical aspect of it. There's a spiritual aspect of it. But something that was nagging at me was the question of what is my why? Why am I specifically called to lead singing circles and not follow the well-worn path of being a choir director, being a traditional choir director, or leading, being a music teacher, or being a jazz singer? I live in all those spaces, but none of those spaces quite define for me the why of why I do it. And then I had this thought pop up into my head. I've had this bad habit in the past of having these really inspired thoughts come into my head. Be like, oh, I'll remember it. I don't need to write it down right now. I'm doing something else. Boop comes. Lesson. Always stop what you're doing and write it down. It came to me the day before I'm putting this video together. And I said, oh, I'll write it down. Um, and then this morning I was like, I gotta write this down. I gotta keep this nugget. There's something there. And so I started writing, and the whole essay poured out, which I actually am thinking of putting on my website. I haven't blogged in forever, but this feels like something that I do want to share with you all more in depth. So I'll put it as a blog, but I'll give you the nugget, the nutshell that came to me the other day, which is this idea that and this is something that's come up for me over and over in different forms, but it crystallized for me so clearly the other day. Um, there are people who experience bullying in childhood, and as an adult, through their journey through life, they somehow find a way to create an empowering context for themselves. So they had those disempowering voices that were pummeled into them as a child, but then as an adult, they alchemize those voices. They develop new perspectives for experiencing themselves. That thing that ugly duckling thing that was once a source of shame. They figure out a way to alchemize it to be a source of strength. There are the people who do that, and then there are the people who experience that same bullying, the same assaults to the psyche as children, and they stay stuck in the loop of that negative programming. They stay stuck. They stay tethered to those negative voices and never quite break out of it. And I see the ways in which I've experienced both sides of that coin, by being stuck in the paradigm that I inherited in certain certain contexts, and then being able to break through and create a new context. And then I ask myself, what's the difference between the two? And one idea that's always stuck with me from the world of psychology, Abraham Maslow, he talks about peak experiences. You can have these two kids both raised in this horrible environment, drugs, gangs, guns everywhere. One person goes on to be self-actualized. They find their thing, they find their charism, they find their gift. That helps reshape their sense of who they are and what's possible for them. And then the other kid, they get sucked under the weight of the environment that they came up in. What's the difference between the two? Assuming same intelligence, grew up in the same space. So what's the difference between them, and how they develop the perspectives that they've developed, that guide their behavior and thus their life, their destiny, etc. And the idea that really inspired me from Abraham Maslow is this concept of a peak experience, which it can be as huge or as tiny, a moment where something clicks and you see that there is something possible for your life beyond your immediate circumstance. And it's not just that the moment happens, is that you notice it as it's happening. Like, oh, I don't have to stay in this drug-infested war zone of an environment. Like, there's something else available to me. Another way of thinking of it, so an example could be, bring the phone a little closer so the plane doesn't drown me out. You could have two kids, again, watch, two black boys, watch a speech from Obama. That speech can hit one of those boys in such a way like, oh wow, it's really possible for me to aspire to something greater than I ever would have thought possible, because I see this guy who's a reflection of me, being held in this high esteem in the world. Other boy, he could watch the same speech and it doesn't resonate for him. Same moment, but it doesn't turn on the switch for him. It's not a peak experience for him. It's just something he sees on TV that doesn't register. Now, later on down the line, something else could happen something major. Maybe him meeting Obama in person would be the peak experience for him. You know? um, and then there may even be some other kid who has who seems to just like come to the world with that knowing, even if they're growing up in the most dire of circumstances. Like maybe there's some peak experience that goes beyond the realm of conscious understanding. Like maybe that's a kid who couldn't say like, oh yeah, at 5 years old this thing happened, and here's what I made it mean at the time with my my limited knowledge. Maybe it's something beyond what they can explain, but somehow they have that knowing that leads them to make very different decisions than maybe what their parents made or the people around them. So all that to say, bringing people together to sing is a peak experience. That's why I do it. I bring people together to sing because of the healing possibility that lives inside of every moment of singing together. Singing amplifies that possibility. Singing amplifies that intention. Singing amplifies that healing. It amplifies that all those things that for all of us felt inexpressible, that joy, that grief, that anger, that didn't get expressed in real time with whatever that thing was that happened at 5 years old, at 7, at 9, it gets expressed now through sound, through language beyond language, through sound beyond time. It collapses everything from all the joys and traumas throughout our lives, and it brings it to this moment as this kaleidoscope, this tapestry of all of it, all of it happening together as this infinite, eternal, this sliver of the infinite and the eternal, like being able to bring all of that, all that you were never able to express before, sometimes using the explicit language that you might not have had access to at 5 years old, whenever things happened that gave you this intense emotional charge that never got expressed. And so I haven't often before, I haven't often explicitly facilitated singing together as how do I say this? It hasn't been an explicit catharsis in the music therapist sense of like, okay, I'm gonna take this trauma and I'm specifically bringing it here to discharge and release. But inevitably, that's what happens. And that is what keeps me coming back to leading these experiences. And I'm interested in bringing more of that explicit catharsis into the space of singing together. But there's something about leaving that open-ended and just leaving space for the formerly inexpressible to be expressed. There's something really powerful in that. And there's a way of holding space in that is distinct and different from music therapy, and different from directing a choir, and different from being a music teacher. And this is the path I'm carving. And it's such a journey for me, like finding the language to describe what this is that I'm doing and what it is that I'm holding space for. And so I'm really grateful to continually create and find and conjure and attract opportunities to bring people together to sing and amplify each other with our witnessing. Yeah, I think I'll stop there.